WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. I want to thank you for being with us again this week, Tuesday at 2:30. Each and every Tuesday, we bring you a show of information and education. Hopefully, it helps you in planning things you're thinking about doing, or maybe not doing some things you were thinking about doing. We try to bring in people that not only know, but have the experience level and expertise to advise and give us depth of information as well as content. One of those folks today is somebody who's been a friend of this community for years. David Herring. David's past president of North Carolina Pork Council, currently serves as the North Carolina Pork Council Executive Committee, graduated from North Carolina State University in 1981. Family-owned business, David. Brothers, Tommy, Mark, mom and dad know very well, Billy and Magdalene. Let me say this as I introduce you. I think I will say this on behalf of not only myself, but probably thousands of other people that would like to say this. Thank you and your family for the contributions you have made to this community, this state, and this country.
JW, thank you. And we can't, as a family, we can't thank the communities around here enough for what they've contributed, not only to the area, but also to the Herring family and the Hog Slat family.
Well, it's interesting because oftentimes, and you and I talked a little bit off air, but oftentimes people go through Newton Grove, and I remember when the Hog Slat building up there where it is used to be, you go up there and get feed for the hogs that you had and pigs at home,
right.
And you get it in a bag and you put it in the back of the truck or on a trailer and you haul it and get it. So they see that and they think, wow, that's Hog Slat. I wondered where that was. But here's the thing I want you to speak to, kind of dial us in, because you guys employ well over 1,000 people, just not including the contract workers, not including TDM farms, not including the connections, and I use this term, and you can kind of dial us in on this, globally, because it's not just in the United States. You spend a lot of your time in the family business in the Midwest.
Yeah, I did. Let me back up a little bit. Dad grew up in Newton Grove. He had 9 brothers and sisters. There were 10 in his family. And in the 60s, he and his brothers bought a Purina feed mill there in Newton Grove. And they started buying grain and feeding hogs. And by accident, he started Hog Slat. He and his brothers had a farm they called Pork Chop Hill, and they were growing hogs on the ground, and they decided they wanted to build some buildings. So they built some buildings to raise animals in, and they didn't have suitable flooring for a nursery building. They were using wood oak slats, and they stayed damp and wet and slick, and the animals didn't fare well on them. So he tried to buy some slats, some concrete slats from a guy in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the guy told him, he said, it'll be 9 months before you can get them. So Dad said, well, I'm not waiting 9 months, I need them now. So he made the original slats himself. Well, one of the Purina salesmen at work that helped him sell feed, he said, Billy, I could sell those while I'm selling feed. So that's how Hog Slat got started in 1969. It got started by a farmer that needed a product on his farm. He made it himself, and then luckily other farmers needed the same product. So that's how we got started.
And I read too that same philosophy still runs through the thread of the company, that you do a lot of testing on your farms and you make sure that it works and you're customer focused. So when they get a product, it's already been tested and verified as being a quality product.
Well, that's true, and we have a research farm here in North Carolina, and we do all kinds of research. That farm in North Carolina is a farrowing farm where the piglets are born. So we test all different products in it. We also use it as a showcase farm. As customers from other states come, we can show them the different tests we're running and the different products that we manufacture. And we have another test farm in Indiana that we grow out or finishing animals. So we test different types of feeders and different types of ventilations and different types of rations. And getting back to your point though, we try very hard to test the products in-house or within customers' facilities before they go out to the general public. But we have great products. We're still trying to be innovative every day, but we've messed up about as much as we have gotten things right. So it's good to get the bugs worked out before it goes out to the general public.
But from what I hear you saying, that original Hog Slat design and model has worked for, let's see, last year was 50 years. 2019 was 50 years with Hog Slat, so it's worked positively for 50 years. We've
been very fortunate, and you know, they say the most important thing is timing and location and timing. And Dad, when he got Hog Slat up and running, and the first several years the business was pretty good. But then we had some producers here in North Carolina that wanted to really get innovative. Producers like Mr. Wendell Murphy or Mr. Otis Carroll or Mr. Bill Prestige that originally worked with Mr. Otis.
Icons in the business.
Icons in the business. And they started getting innovative and growing. And luckily, Dad and our family were in a location that we got to service and create products for, you know, such innovative people. So timing was everything. And then the other side of it was the work ethic in rural eastern North Carolina is, I've lived in 5 different states all over this country, and I've never lived anywhere that will rival the work ethic of the people in eastern North Carolina. So we were lucky, we had innovation, we had products, we had a market, and then we had great people and employees to work in the business.
Well, and at some point in time, it started growing exponentially, because when you made a move to the operation in Clinton, many people remember that location as being a furniture manufacturing operation. That is a huge, at least in my terms of thinking, a huge facility, and now you're adding on at the end of that.
Well, we're very fortunate. About 7 or 8 years ago to acquire that facility. We were just busting at the seams in Newton Grove. And for many years, JW, we sold other people's products, like feed delivery systems and ventilation systems and feed bins. And other manufacturers made it, and we worked with them, and we sold their products along with the products that we manufactured. But slowly in time, we started creating our own product lines, as well as products that we have that might not be perfect. The products we were selling for other people, we knew where their pitfalls were. So we improved those, and Dad's model has always been, since I got back to school and went to work for him, was we manufacture and sell it to the end user. There's no in between. So we have developed a great rapport with those customers, and we understand, because we are in the hog business, we understand what they can afford to pay for products and what those products need to cost. So we've been very fortunate of knowing how a product needs to work, how it can fit into an operation on the economic side of it. And we've just been lucky that we've just had wonderful people working for us. So.
And you mentioned you were in the hog business, and that is in no small way either, because you got upwards of 30,000 plus.
Yeah, we market about somewhere between 7 and 750,000 market animals a year. Wow. We started in Tommy, our pork division is called TDM Farms. I have 2 brothers, Tommy and Mark, and we started that in 1983 buying feeder pigs, growing them out on the ground. And then we leased a sow farm over near Fayetteville, and we've just been growing continuously since '83. And now today, most of the sows are here in North Carolina. We do have some in Georgia and Illinois, but the piglets are born here in North Carolina, and at 3 weeks of age, we ship them to Indiana. And we have a feed mill out in Carroll County, Indiana, and we have about 80 production partners around that feed mill. that provide the labor in the buildings, and we furnish them the feed and the hogs, and it's been a great fit. And
it's interesting when you mentioned Indiana, and I've got to try to get this question in, but it seems that you ended up being the child in the family that went afar and stayed and produced business there. Was that something, just a natural inclination that you're the guy that can do that, or did Tommy and Mark just say, look, I'm not interested in it?
No, I think it was in 1987 we were doing a project up in Virginia. Let me back up a second. In 1985, a company out in Kansas asked Dad to come out and build a farm. And things were pretty busy here, but Dad thought that was pretty intriguing, and it was a good opportunity. So he and Mom moved to Kansas and spent almost 10 months in 1985 and built a farm out there for DeKalb swine genetics. So Dad was the first one to really
the traveler.
Yeah. But when he got back from Kansas, Tommy had inked a deal with Carroll's Food and Smithfield Food. It was one of their first joint business ventures up in Smithfield, Virginia, and they were going to build farms up there close to their packing facilities. And once that project started, it was the biggest project we'd ever done as a company. And I ended up moving up there in 1987, and I stayed there until about 2.5 years. And then I had an opportunity. My older brother said, we're going to build some farms in Mississippi or some in Oklahoma. And where would you like to go? Well, Virginia, in the area we were working up there, they got about 50, 60 inches of rain a year. So that was one of the challenges working there. You were always working in bad weather. And so I knew Oklahoma was going to be dry, so I went to Oklahoma.
I want to pick up on that when we come back from break. We're going to take our first break. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us. We're talking with David Harry, and I want to kind of, as a go-to break here, kind of introduce you to where we're going. We're talking about Hog Slat and all the derivatives of Hog Slat, and we'll be back in a moment and talk about some more in-depth issues with the industry as a whole. Call a friend, stay tuned.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us. Every Tuesday at 2:30, We Should Know is on the air. Channel 16, Star Communications, WCLN Radio. Also a summation, Sampson Weekly newspaper. When we do this show, we bring not only credible people in, but people that understands the content, understands the position that they speak from. I know of nobody today that I could bring in to talk about the industry, particularly the livestock industry, hog industry, than David Herring. David, as we went to break, you were talking about your movements and the travel time and where you'd ended up from Smithfield, Virginia to Oklahoma and different places. You've literally lived all over the country as you have helped build the family business. And I keep emphasizing that because a lot of folks don't understand family businesses now is what's making this country thrive. It's not the corporate entities from outside of other countries and that kind of thing. That's the greatness of, I think, of our capitalistic market here, is that family businesses can still make it. One of the pieces that I guess was 2019 when you had the 50th year anniversary of Hog Slat. You had David Herring, which is vice president of Hog Slat, one of the three boys, became the president of the National Pork Council. You knew you were headed in that direction. You had a sense for that. But when you landed there and your feet hit the ground, at that moment in time in 2019, we were not to COVID yet, we were before that. There was a lot going on, and there was a lot dealing with exports. There was a lot of stuff about tariffs. I read one article, you were in and out of the President of the United States office 6 or 7 times during that tenure. You were everywhere around the country. one of the things I recall you said, a quote, I'm going to paraphrase, it's not an exact quote, but the important thing you said, you have to love this business to do it. Tell us about your tenure as the president of North Carolina Pork Council. That's a big position.
Well, let me tell you what National Pork Producers Council is. Mm-hmm. Roughly in the United States today, there's 60,000 pork producers. And NPPC, or National Pork Producers Council, is a voluntarily funded organization. We have about a 75% buy-in from all the pork producers. And the function of the National Pork Producers Council, I call it the gatekeeper of the industry. Mm-hmm. They can lobby, they can work on public policy, and that's what they do. There's an office in Des Moines, Iowa, and there's an office in Washington, D.C. And the Pork Producers Council is made up of a 15-member board. And you're elected by your peers. You have to run for office just like you would for a federal or state office. And it's an honor to get to serve. And I served on the board for 6 years before I became president. And my older brother would have probably been a better candidate, but he pushed me that way. So, but in 2019, I served as president. And it's a pretty daunting task because not only am you representing the industry that you love, but with our business Hog Slat, I'm representing a lot of customers. So if you make some of them mad, you're losing customers. But
it's a weighty position.
It was challenging. Yes. And in 2019, with the current administration's policy on foreign trade, the pork industry exports about 30% of all the pork that's produced in the United States. So we rely heavily on exports. And President Trump, he was most disgruntled with our top export markets like China, Mexico, and Canada. From third day he was in office, something we had worked very hard on as pork producers was TPP, which was the Trans-Pacific Partnership that made up of the United States and 11 other countries, most of them Asian. Mm-hmm. And one of them that was very important to us was Japan, because it was our largest value market. So third day he signed the executive order and did away with TPP. And and then later on in the year, I think early March, he put steel tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Yep. And so all of a sudden, our very good customers are not in very good light with the current administration. So we worked on those challenges all year long. And like you said, I got to visit with the president 5 or 6 times and tried to help him understand and his staff understand the point that was so important to the pork producers. And it was pretty honest. I had several people ask me after a couple the first initial meetings, what's the president like?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was my next question. Tell us about the president.
And I would tell you, like I told my dad, I said, when you get him away from the media, it's just like talking to you. He's a businessman. The first time I met with the president, I met with him at 7 a.m. at the Roosevelt Room in the White House. Mm-hmm. Well, anybody that's ever been in the White House knows it takes you about 45 minutes to get through security to get in there. But when we walked in the room, he's sitting there at 7 o'clock. And I got to know a lot of the staff up there and some of the ones behind the scenes. And you see things in the paper about how chaotic it is in the White House. Yeah. And I ask him, I'm like, is it really like that? And he goes, oh yeah. Said the guy doesn't sleep. So he does not sleep.
He wants to be in the middle of it all.
He said he'll give you a task at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 7:15 the next morning he'll say, hey, did you get this done? No, we're working on it. Well, we don't want it worked done, we want it done. So, you know, I've never been a political person, but I have a certain amount of admiration for the administration and the president, because that's how I grew up. My dad was the same way.
Absolutely.
You know, it was
high expectations.
Exactly, and it couldn't get done fast enough. So But we had a lot of good successes last year, and when I handed the gavel over in March of 2020, you know, some of these we got a new NAFTA, or they call it the USMCA now.
Yeah, the Canada, Mexico trade.
Right. And there was an announcement that China was going to buy $40 billion worth of agricultural goods over 2 years. Mm-hmm. That's in progress now. Mm-hmm. And we got an early harvest in Japan. Pork got a deal done with the Japanese, and we were losing market share there. And it was unheard of to go in and they pick out a couple items like pork and some IT businesses and said, okay, we'll do a deal with you guys. So we're back in the Japanese market.
Major player.
Like I say, it's the Chinese market. They buy a lot of things that U.S. consumers wouldn't even eat.
Well, now the Chinese was experiencing a problem in the hog industry over there with a disease, were they not?
China in October 2018 got African swine fever.
Right.
And China produces 50% of all the hogs in the world. Mm. So they've got 5 times as many hogs in China as we do in the United States. Wow. And it might be 6 times, but it's hard to get good actual numbers out of China. But they've lost about half their herd in China. So they really need pork. And in the United States, we consume on average about 50 pounds of pork a year per consumer. In China, it's more like 80 to 90 pounds. They really like pork. They're not big on poultry, and beef is very expensive. So they consume almost, 60-70% more pork than we do.
That's their protein of choice.
That's their protein of choice. But a lot of the products we send out in the United States are bungs and stomachs and intestines, and that's what they like. They've grown up on it. Mm-hmm. Now we send primal cuts over there, but it's a huge market for the United States, and we still have tariffs today. So it's impeding some of our opportunities to sell, but our exports to China are up considerably, and as a pork producer, we hope we can keep them going that way. So, I mean, there were 3 of the things we worked on, and there's a lot of other things. I got to know Secretary Perdue, our Ag Secretary, and just thank the good Lord he's in that office today, because not only, I mean, he used to be the governor of Georgia, and he's a politician, but he's a farmer at heart.
He seems to be grounded.
He's a great,
I've never met him, but
he's a great guy, and he understands ag, and he understands the pork industry.
And been here to this county a couple
He's
of
been
times.
here a couple times. And he's just a great guy. I mean, and he's a hard-working guy, and he understands what is important. And when you look at Sampson County, where we're sitting at today, it's a top 10 ag county in the United States, and it's so diversified. We've got poultry. I think we're maybe number 1 in turkeys. We're number 2 in hogs, and Sampson County and our neighboring county, Duplin County, are number 1 and 2 every year in the United States in pork production. So we're very fortunate to have grain, have our produce, have our tobacco, and have our livestock. It's what makes Sampson and Duplin County work.
I think in listening to your commentary about the president, a fellow that I had on, and you probably know Wellie Jackson, grows turkeys.
Right.
Wellie talked about his experience going to D.C. and talking to the president when he took the turkeys up there. But he said basically, in generality, the same thing, just a regular kind of a down-to-earth kind of guy. But oftentimes we don't see that side of a person, and it gets kind of confusing out here. I don't know how to get people to understand, but everybody I talk to that's had personal connections relay similar message.
Well, I think, and like I say, I've had the opportunity a couple of times to just talk. And it seems to be a pretty ordinary, normal guy once you get him away from the media and get him away from the cameras. I don't know him that well, but
you get a better sense.
You get more comfortable, and when somebody sits down and goes, "Tell me what you do," you get kind of comfortable.
Absolutely. We're going to take another break. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking about all things pork. We're talking about turkey. We're talking about protein. We're talking with...
You come out to replace a bad sensor, and that adds a 5-year commitment to my contract, and you don't tell me? Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping homes secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody trying to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I want to thank you for being with us. Remember, this is We Should Know. You can reach us at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. Just send us a text, as you have been doing, about shows you'd like to see, people you'd like to see us talk with, people that you think would be great for other folks to know about. We'll be glad to get back with you. Also, you can just send us a postcard, or some people will send us a little letter occasionally down to Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina 28328, and just address that to We Should Know. I'll be glad to read it. If you want a response, I'll be glad to respond to you, call you, whatever. See a lot of folks out every day, every week around here in ag country, and they ask me about different subjects. Most of the time I know a little bit, but not a whole lot of depth. And when I think I know a little bit about the hog and poultry industry, I discover I know very little, so I have to bring people in. One of those people is David Herring with Hog Slat, TDM Farms. David, you also graduated, I've kind of given a little bit about your background. I want to try to get this in. You graduated from the National Pork Producer Council's Public Policy Leadership Institute, and of course past president of North Carolina Council and those kinds of things. But you're living up in Lillington now with your wife Lisa. You got 3 children, Magdalene, Mary Ellen, and William. Yep,
we moved back. We were talking earlier, I moved from Newton Grove area in 1987 to Virginia, and from Virginia to Oklahoma, and spent a year and a half in Oklahoma, moved to Iowa in 91, and spent about 2 years in Iowa and back to Oklahoma, and then in 93 back to Oklahoma, and then moved back to North Carolina in 2002. So we've been living in Buies Creek, America, or Lillington, since 2002. Now my wife would tell you I'm on an airplane or a car, but not home a lot. But.
Exactly. And one of those places, I would ask, do you see one of those places as being one that if you needed to go back and spend a year or two that you wouldn't mind in either one of those locations?
Well, everywhere we've lived's been awesome. I think home's where you hang your hat, and we've been fortunate. We've always lived in rural America. Not many hog facilities in metropolitan America, but rural people, it doesn't matter what state you live in, they're pretty much cut from the same cloth. But I would tell you, my wife, I drug her back from Oklahoma kicking and screaming. She loved it out there.
Beautiful country.
It's pretty country. It's got its own beauty. And she'd moved back tomorrow because she just liked it. It's very, very densely, sparsely populated, and not a lot of keeping up with the Joneses, and she likes that.
And there's a lot to be said for big sky country overall, isn't there?
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
I want to kind of get your sense for what you could say if you had to tell folks what's the key things that impacted me most in your tenure as the past president, or as the president at the time of the Pork Council. I said a while ago it seemed to be a very weighted position because the expectation of that position as the representative of the pork producers is pretty huge. I mean, and these folks don't take no for example. I mean, if they don't like something, you're probably gonna know it.
Yeah, you get many phone calls.
So what do you feel?
Some of them are pleasant, and some of them are not very pleasant.
We don't need to talk about them. Yeah. What did you take away that is probably, would you say, is most memorable in going through that exercise?
Well, I think the one thing I learned the most about was I've always kind of thought I was a good listener, but I learned how valuable that was. You needed to really listen in detail and understand how it affected everybody. Because in that position, you're representing producers that might sell 5 million pigs a year, or a producer that might sell 50 pigs a year. You're representing all producers. So when the administration or government's trying to pass, or Congress is trying to pass a law, you got to understand how it affects everybody, and what's best for the industry, not just today but long term. And if you make short-term decisions or bad decisions, they might not pop up. They might pop up in a day, or they might not show up for 4 or 5 years. So you're trying to gather as much information as you can, and you rely on producers from all states and the staff at NPPC to help guide you in making those decisions. Now, all the decisions are made at a board level, but when the board gets deadlocked and they turn and look for that vote that makes the difference, that's when you better have done your homework. My granddad always said that people make bad decisions when they're either uninformed or ill-informed. So you try to get as much information as you can, and I learned that listening was probably one of the most valuable things you could do. And I also learned that it didn't matter if it was Secretary of Agriculture, the President of the United States, or the Vice President. He put her pants on just like we put ours on every day. And they want the right information too. So that's, I think, the more informed you can be. And luckily, I've spent 40 years in this business, and I've been able to work with my brothers and staff at Hog Slat that they're second to none. So I had a lot of knowledge and all behind me, so that helped me a lot.
When you think about organizations the size of yours now, which we talked about a while ago, well over 1,000 employees that are employees at Hog Slat, not to include contract workers and others. When you look at that, is there a particular business model or is there a particular thing that causes employees to say what they say about Hog Slat, which is a great place to work, which is, feel like they're cared for? I mean, what is it that does that? Is there a specific model, or is that just part of who the family is? Did that come from your daddy? Did that come from your mama? What is that? What is that thread?
I think the atmosphere at work. I started working with Dad when I was a teenager, and Dad, in his love and his hobby is working. Any kind of monetary compensation from it was an intrinsic value. He just loved to work, and I think he grew up with a big family, and he always looked at Hog Slat as a family. And I get really frustrated. You watch the 7 o'clock news or the 9 o'clock news, and they won't talk about a big corporation. Well, our business, Dad started it with 3 employees and hope, basically. Didn't have any money. And today some people would say you're a big corporation. Well, I can tell you what Hog Slat is. It's just a bunch of people going to work every day trying to feed their families. And I would probably say most businesses out there, that's all it is. And so that's why we've always tried to keep that perspective that, I used to recruit our people at the universities. And I would tell them, I'm like, if you can't wear many hats when you come to work for us, you won't be there long, because that's kind of where we're at. Everybody pitches in and helps each other out, and you might wear 5 different hats in a week. So I think I think Mom and Dad set the tone, and I think I've worked for my older brother for the last 35 years, and he's been a great leader, and been great to work for. Now, he's not the easiest guy in the world to work for, but I don't think it would be any different. I've been very lucky. I've always worked for Hog Slat just like I would work for Star Telephone. I've looked at it like I had a job to do, and I had to do the job. And we have operations in about 25 states today and about 8 other countries. So, things that other countries see the innovation that's happening across ag in this country, and they want a part of it. So we've been fortunate enough to grow the operations in other countries too. And I've been fortunate enough to travel to those countries, and you know, I grew up and basically got taught in grammar school that the Russian people, oh, they're bad people. Mm-hmm. But you get over there, guess what? They're just like you and I, JW. Yep. They're just trying to feed their families and trying to take care of their people.
And find a better tomorrow.
And find a better tomorrow. I mean, I found that in any country we've ever worked in. I mean, so, and that's been a great experience to be able to work with other people. And it's really a great experience when you can go help a customer better his operation or better his bottom line. That's where you really get the satisfaction.
You know, when I just sitting here listening to you, and as you said, I have to be a good listener too, I hear three things coming through that is so clear to me. Is I hear a strong faith coming through, I hear the importance of family, and I hear the importance of a good work ethic. And to me, when I hear you talk, it's just, it exudes, it just comes out.
Well, I've been very lucky. I had great grandparents and great parents, and you know, it couldn't help but rub off on you. So I've enjoyed it and still enjoy it every day, and trying to pass it down to my kids, and luckily so far they're doing good. So, but this area of North Carolina, and especially eastern North Carolina, you know, like I say, I've been able to live in other parts, but this is great people down here. And everybody pulls, for the most part, everybody's pulling on the same end of the rope, and that's what makes it work.
Absolutely. Do you find that being here, especially with a lot of exports you do, and again, you mentioned 8 other countries, is this a good place to get the products that you push over the world here and there that people call for? Is this a good place to ship them from?
Yeah, well, yeah. We've got to, we can ship out of the ports in Wilmington, and then it's pretty regional. A lot of products that we make are made out of metal. Mm-hmm. And just to the south of us, we've got several big metal suppliers, and we've got what they call mini mills there. Mm-hmm. And it's been a good low-cost input source for us.
We're going to take our last break, and I'd like to come back and step into the world that we're in now, the COVID-19 world. If we don't know that, we're told that every day on the news media about 10 times. We're going to do that when we come back. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking to David Herring, Hog Slat, Vice President, family-owned business.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I want to thank you for being with us. Coming on our last segment here today, talking with David Herring, Hog Slat, right here in Clinton, Newton Grove, Sampson County, 6 or 8 other places all over the world. TDM farms, producing stuff not only for hogs but for chickens too. We've learned a lot here today. And David, you've been kind enough to sit down and take a little of your time trying to do what I do every week, is to get more people that know things like you do and maybe educate folks. I want to kind of segue into the world we're in now, which is the COVID-19 world. Never thought I'd be facing the things we're facing. I know back in 2018 and 19, you probably were doing a lot of stuff and you couldn't imagine that we would be facing what we're facing. How has this changed business for you, and has it? And how has it been an impediment for you as a business person?
You said it right, JW. It has changed the world in this country and all over the country since what, first of March? You know, I think so much unknown and so much fear out there that has really caused a lot of angst and a lot of supply chain issues in a lot of businesses, especially in the pork industry. We produce about 130 million pigs in this country a year. So any given day, there's about 450 to 470,000 animals harvested. And one of the biggest issues we've seen so far is most of these animals are harvested in large packing plants. There's one right here where we're sitting today that harvests about 10 or 11,000 animals a day. And then, 50 miles south of here at Tar Heel is the big Smithfield plant, and they harvest about 32,000 a day.
And that's touted as the largest in the world?
It's the largest in the world. And we have seen numerous closures of harvest plants and slowdowns. Like, I think today maybe Tar Heel's running about 60%. I was told this morning they killed or going to harvest about 20,000 animals a day today. And the Clinton plant was going to do about 6,000.
So they're ramping back up.
They're starting to ramp back up. We've had plants in the Midwest close. Minnesota has been hit the hardest. These animals are produced in sort of a carousel fashion. The facilities are built, and most of the producers today, they have piglets born today every day, and they have pigs sold every day. And the way that the facilities are designed, these animals kind of flow through them. Well, if a harvest plant goes down and you can't sell your market-ready animals, you got animals coming behind them, and there's nowhere for them to go. So I know in Minnesota last week, they've been hit really hard, and they produce about the same amount of animals as North Carolina does. They euthanized 70,000 animals last week in Minnesota because there's nowhere to market those animals, nowhere for the plants to harvest the animals.
That's like burning money.
It is, and it goes against everything a pork producer's about.
It's unconscionable.
It is. I mean, and not only that, you look at the economic side of it, there's probably producers out there that's going to have to go out of business because they're just losing so much money. But the most humane thing they can do is get with their vet if they've got nowhere for the animal to go and nowhere to house them, is to euthanize them. But it's terrible. We haven't seen any of that here in North Carolina. But if we can't get the plants back up and running, that could happen. So that's one of the issues. The other issue is 25% of all the pork that's produced in the United States is sold through food service. The restaurants are closed down. The schools are closed down. So all of a sudden, we had 25% too much pork. And originally, you saw, even today, the price of a market weight animal, most producers are losing $40 to $50 a head on. So economically devastated at the farm level. The plants can't operate, so the plants haven't been doing good. Luckily, the plants are starting to come back online, and the president did announce roughly 10 days ago, I think, that these harvest plants are essential. As essential as a hospital and hospital workers. And I know all these Smithfield and these other packers out there are doing everything they can to try to create a safe environment for the workers. And those people that are showing up every day, I tip my hat to them, just like I do the people that are showing up at our business every day. I think they're a very, very important part, and they need to feel safe, and the environment needs to be safe for them. We don't want sick people working, and we don't expect people to work in an unsafe environment, but we have to eat, and life has to go on, and these animals need to keep going through the chain.
And a lot of thing that adds to that, I think, is you'll see all of a sudden these pronouncements that, you know, meat prices are going to be going up, and they see it as a supply issue, and it's not a supply issue. It's part of that chain that breaks down, because if you don't have the processing going on, the supply is going to get bagged up, and then all that people see is increase in meat price, or they don't see their preferred cut of choice.
Right.
And then they start panicking.
Well, what we've got, I call it the bow tie effect. We've got plenty of supply of live animals, and then we got this bottleneck, or like in the center of a bow tie. There's plenty of harvest capacity, but the harvest capacity is down because of the virus. So we're bottlenecked here trying to turn a live animal into pork, or the product that the consumer wants. But it's getting better, but it has been economically. We're estimating the pork industry alone would show $5 to $5.5 billion in losses this year.
How long does it take you to shake that off and move forward?
tell you what, it's going to take a lot of determination. It's going to take some friendly bankers to help us get through this.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's not a good situation. But there's, you know, I think early on with COVID, there were so many unknowns. I think the administration did a good job. They closed things down, but as data's starting to come in and they're understanding how the virus affects different demographics of people, we've got to open this country back up. We've got to get back to work. And I think New York was the early model, and there was a lot of people that lost their life up there. But the population density up there, the way the people lived, the way the people were transported, that's totally different in Eastern North Carolina. So they can't use that model. It'd be terrible for them to make the perfect the enemy of the good, and we need to be able to open back up in areas that can be safe and people can social distance and get back to work. Because I think most people want to work. They want to go feel good about earning that check and get back to a normal life. And but there's some of the disruptions that's happening, and the really hard thing was, we were already producing record amounts of pork in this country. And the shackle space was pretty tight. Mm-hmm. And then when the plants started going down, we really got in trouble in a hurry because these plants need to run at full capacity every day. And there's somewhere between 3.5 to 4 million animals backed up on farms in the Midwest right now. We've got some backed up here in North Carolina, but if these plants are able to keep progressively getting better every week, I think we can work out of it here.
Is there an effort to slow down the supply side of production of the animal to compensate? And is that something that if it is put into effect, that's going to take years to get back up to speed? Because the whole, as you said, the whole bow tie is getting frazzled.
You know, from the time you decide to breed an animal, it's about 10 months before animal's ready to go to market. Mm-hmm. But once you bred that animal, it's not like a light switch. You can't turn it on and turn it off. It's Mother Nature, it's biological clock working. So, but we are seeing people cut production. We're seeing some farmers that are exiting the business. And also in areas like, even in our operations in Indiana, we've changed diets on pigs so we could slow the growth down. And that's worked pretty good. So we could hold them longer. We've had to increase stocking densities in some of the facilities. Mm-hmm. We've gotten, like here in North Carolina, we've got permission from the state to add some more animals on that farm because you don't have anywhere for them to go. So you know, you have to do what you have to do. And you know, we're constantly working with our veterinary services and making sure we're doing things humanely. And you know, one thing, I just tip my hat to all the farm workers, especially ours. Nobody's missed a day of work. We hadn't had anybody sick. They come to work and they're doing their jobs. But I know it's got to be hard on a lot of people because there's been so many businesses closed.
Is this same kind of scenario occurring in the other countries you guys are operating in?
Yes.
Do you see the same kind of dynamic going on?
Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of them. I mean, basically, you know, people think of the United States locked down or closed down. Yeah. Whole world's locked down.
Yeah.
So, you know, even like exporting products to China. Early on in this, we were having problems because the dock workers in China that were receiving the shipments, they weren't there or they weren't coming to work. So I mean, the tentacles of this are very long and very deep.
So everybody's feeling a taste, that bitter taste of what happens when things start shutting down, and loss of jobs, it's affecting everybody, no matter where you're at in the flow.
Exactly. I've got some good friends in Ireland. Well, Ireland's GDP is about 50% tourism. That's gone. Mm-hmm.
And that kills everything.
It kills it all. I mean, so COVID has been a disaster for.
Well, I want to thank you again for being with us. Best wishes for your entire family, and stay safe and well. We need you. And you have a seat at this table anytime you want to come back, and tell Tommy I'll put a little mark over there for him as well.
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
You're getting pretty desperate when you get me on.
I don't think so. I've got the right guy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us
Thank
today.
you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.